Denver. Now, at least once a week, what I'm looking forward to is breaking down how different places are affected by different things, right? I've done similar stories like this in the past. I think I've done it on Baltimore. I've done it on Chicago. I've done it on a few places. Have I done it on New York yet? I'm not sure. But I want to tackle different things for different places, and I want to kind of hone in on certain things, right? And so we want to hone in on Denver today, and we want to hone in on the migrant crisis that's happening over in Denver, because Denver is absolutely under assault and overwhelmed, because Denver is not even Chicago. Denver does not have the monies, the resources, and the budget that Chicago has. Denver certainly is not New York. You know, y'all can cut the budget for sanitation in New York, and yeah, y'all gonna suffer as a result of it, and y'all gonna have less police, but y'all used to the crime that goes over in New York. Y'all used to the rats that's running around. And these multi-billion-dollar budget that y'all got over in New York, you can kind of hide in between the seams and the cracks because y'all got over 8 million people over there. But for a city like Denver, that's always looking for another leg up. They always trying to expand the airport. They always trying to figure out how they can monetize something new that's going to affect the rest of the country in a negative way, like marijuana, right? That didn't work out. Nobody benefited as a result of that. The city's coffers is not better as a result of it, and the city is in worse shape than it's ever been. But Denver is literally being overwhelmed. And I am not exaggerating when I say overwhelmed. I mean overwhelmed by what is going on in the migrant crisis. Hospitals, schools, shelters, everything is falling apart in one of your favorite American cities whose air you can't even breathe the same way because of where it is that it's located. Hit a like for the algorithm. Let's rock out, y'all.
Tonight, one of Colorado's largest hospitals facing a crisis. Physicians at Denver Health telling us they treat everyone who comes to the ER, regardless of immigration status or ability to pay. But they're struggling to handle a spike in migrant patients.
It's been really, really hard to take care of them, both in terms of their inability to pay, but also just the sheer volume of patients that we weren't expecting.
Denver has a population of 700,000 people, and just the last year, nearly 40,000 migrants have arrived.
Let me say that again. Denver has a population of just over 700,000 people. Just last year alone, over 40,000 migrants have arrived, which made the mayor declare a state of emergency. Now, one of the things that happens when somebody declares something a crisis or an emergency is that they start to have full autonomy of how they use the resources because they can skip over all of the safeguards, such as city council, to determine what happens with the money. In most cities, especially major cities, the city council is the person that directs where the money goes. How do I know this? Because I've talked to multiple different politicians that's a part of city council and former mayors, right? The city council actually determine where the money goes, not the mayor. The mayor is kind of sort of the spokesperson, he the forefront, he the business person. He meets with most of the business leaders. But when they have that meeting on a weekly basis to determine what gets approved, what money goes where, or whatever, most of the time that comes to the city council. So the mayor puts together a budget that the city council approves, and then the city council is the ones that's the safeguards against what happens when the mayor decides that they want to jump off the reservation. Unless you declare it a emergency or a crisis. Because not only do you have the ability to tap into federal monies, you have the ability to tap into emergency funds, but you can then have a little bit more autonomy of what happens with the monies. Now, considering that we got 40,000 people that's moving in, that's not paying taxes, but taking up resources, you got to clothe them, you got to house them, you got to get food. This is another reason why inflation in a personal setting or a personal place in a locality can explode amongst the people, whereas the standard of living over there might be a little bit different. Well, Anton, how does that work? Well, the way that it works is the fact that you got to spend more money to service these people, but then you're not getting nothing back in the coffers, such as what happens in a hospital. So now the hospital got to figure out a way to pass all of those costs over to the rest of the people that come into the hospital and the consumers, including your insurance company and you personally, because they don't have anywhere to bill. So they're using the same amount of resources. They're actually having to work overtime to service all of these people because you may not have known it, but we basically got free health care here in the United States of America. Nope, You ain't never even got to have insurance. If you go into the hospital, they not going to refuse you service. They going to have to make sure that they take care of you, similar to the way that they taking care of these migrants. And then they got to figure out how to pass the cost over to the consumer because the hospital still got to stay afloat. Hospitals still got to generate revenue. So just because you not paying your bills or the migrants not paying their bills and they ain't got nowhere to bill it to, don't mean that they're going to refuse them service, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to still cost the hospital. They got to pass that cost over to the consumer. It's almost just like having shrinkage inside of a retail store. If everybody that comes in, if more than half of the people that come in, or more than 2/3 of the people that come in is stealing, then they got to pass that cost over to the consumers that actually purchase their goods. So you the one that then pay for it, not only with your tax dollars, but also with everything surrounding your infrastructure that allows for your city to be able to run effectively, right? And that's what's happening over in the migrant crisis with Denver. See, the migrant crisis doesn't just kill you with regard to replacing you, to who's going to vote, what the jobs are, the cost of doing business, what's happening in your schools. It also costs you more money, not just as a taxpayer, but also as a regular resident and citizen that goes in to do business every single day as a regular individual. It then costs you more money in order to go to the hospital. You try to figure out, man, why is my hospital bill so big? Why is it costing me so money just to have a baby? Well, they got to pass that cost over because guess what? Regardless if it's a nonprofit or if it's a for-profit hospital, they still have to make money because that's where they get the money to pay the nurses and the doctors and all of these places. And if they don't make money, guess what? They shut it down.
The mayor declaring a state of emergency. More than 8,000 migrants have come to Denver Health for care, and most of that is coming out of the hospital's pocket. The hospital says they need more help from federal and state government to pay for over $10 million in unpaid migrant medical bills so far.
So when you go into your neighborhood and you say, oh my God, they're underserving and this is systematic racism. You say, okay, well, explain to me how it's systematic racism. Because they don't do the thing that's in the best interest of everybody, and the hospitals over there in the rich county is different than the hospitals over here in the hood. Well, that's because don't nobody in the hood pay their hospital bills, and half of them ain't got insurance in the first place. And the insurance that they do have, it come from the state, which is basically paying out less in premiums and what it is that you're doing for certain services versus what you got going over there in your own private healthcare insurance or for people that pay their bills. Right? So when you talk about the level of care and the amount of people that you got to service, is very similar to what's happening with the migrant crisis. Those hospitals that serve underprivileged or people that don't want to actually do the thing that's in their best interest in their own communities, they get destroyed by a segment of people that it then pass that cost over to the rest of the people that may have to be able to do it. But when you can't balance that out, guess what happens? Then you have a hospital that closes inside of your hood or your neighborhood. See, it all comes back down to the money, and that's why we talk about this on the Millionaire Morning Show. All of it, every piece of it comes back down to the money. It's not systemic. It's just the reality. It's guns and butter, baby. Guns and butter. See, the guns is the dumb shit. You know. Y'all going out here, dumb shit. See the butter? That's the stocks and the bonds. The stocks, the bonds, artwork. It's that appreciate. You dumb mother effers. Ain't that what Ving Rhames said in Baby Boy? It's guns. He was cutting his bald head with the razor. It's guns. And it's butter, baby. It's guns and butter. See, the guns is the dumb shit.
Outside a shelter, we meet Mary Anise and her 3 sons. She's being treated here for Parkinson's. I'm very grateful. In my country, it was very difficult. We were not able to get medicine for my condition, she said.
With that new North Face jacket on, all white on white on white.
Emergency room pediatrician Dr. Christy Rodriguez says they want to give patients the care they need, but they need funding, with the hospital facing a breaking point. Is this an emergency here?
I think it's about to be. I think this isn't sustainable how it is right now.
Meanwhile, Denver's public schools are also scrambling to keep up, with nearly 3,000 new migrant students.
So we've had around 100, which makes about 20% now of our student body. Now, over time,
Principal Brian Clark's school now receives 5 to 10 new students per week, what they used to get in an entire year. Now, some classes have hit the 35 student limit, so some students have had to be transferred to other schools. Come February 5th, the city says they'll start restricting stays on migrants in shelters and kicking many of them out onto the streets.
It affects everything that you do. See, some of y'all said, oh, send the migrants in. Oh, we're all a part of the same congregation, kumbaya. But what about when your teacher can't teach because now they got to allocate more of their time and their resources over into teaching this kid that don't even speak English, and they got to be bilingual, and you got over 40 to 45 people in one classroom, and this person don't even know what to do or follow the instructions, and you got to have more money and resources and school funding for school lunches. And you see how it all starts to trickle down and how it affects your children? See, nobody cares until it's your children. See, I don't have to worry about it because my daughter will then go to a private school and I can afford it. And this is how the middle class are the ones that get shafted and then hit in the back of their head. And then you trying to figure out how you can do better. And I need to move out to a new school district, a new neighborhood. Nah, family, this is you. This is all for you. This is what you voted for. So now you got to sit and live with it. And you think that they just sitting still all day long? The parents, they just slow motion? Nah, they went and got them a squeegee from Walmart and Target and CVS, and every single stoplight that you stop at, they trying to get you some tip money over from them squeegees, because what you thought that they was going to wait for a work permit in order to start to get themselves together?
All new here at 9, the problem solvers are taking your viewer concerns to the city about scenes just like this one. Many are reporting an increase of people crowding in medians, using squeegees on cars and selling flowers or other panhandling around the metro. Tonight, Fox 31's Nicole Fierro is on it. She joins us live with the story. Nicole.
Yeah, it's something you may very well see driving along here on Colfax in Colorado during the day. People squeegeeing, the same act for money that prompted a crackdown in New York City decades ago. But here in Denver, city officials tell us this is now a result of the migrant crisis.
Coming up on Colorado and Colfax. 1 second, you're stopping for a red. The next, you may get a smile of suds on your windshield. It's something drivers like Xavier Hill have noticed lately.
Actually, read the note from one of the guys. He said he was from Venezuela. Said his name, and it seemed like they're just, I guess, kind of put up here, placed up here, and they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any way to do anything or any way to, I guess, earn money through identification or, background checks and stuff like that.
A situation Denver City Council member at large Sarah Parody spoke to us about.
And it's a lot of young families and people that had every conceivable background coming from Venezuela, but people that are professionals. I've talked to so many healthcare professionals.
Parody says seeing more people squeegeeing on the streets is a ripple effect of the current.
I hear you giving us an update about the students and stuff in the chat. I hear you. I'm rocking with you.
Asylum and work authorization barriers that council and city leaders have been pressing the federal government to fix.
They won't get a hearing in their asylum case usually for like 1 to 3 years. And during that time, there's a wait period where they are prohibited from working. And if they work, they could actually lose their claim and be deported.
So we've asked for expanded work authorization. We've asked for the ability for more people to be able to get there and get a job.
John Ewing with Denver Human Services says he, like many constituents, recognizes the safety concerns of people crowding the medians in traffic.
We worry about it too. We do tell people when they're in shelter immediately, here's some things you need to know about traffic around here.
Yeah, we reached out to DPD about the traffic safety concerns and legality about it in case, someone got hit. They said they'd give us a written response. Haven't received it yet at this hour, but as soon as we get anything, we'll be sure to update you on air and put it online.
So if you're in Denver or New York or Chicago, hustle culture is going to be real because, they ain't just chilling, right? But I'll do you one better. Not only are they panhandling out here in Denver, because Denver is under assault, they also trying to hire them for the actual state. Yes, the migrants are starting to get hired, or at least that's what they're advocating for in the city of Denver.
Right now, many migrants in Denver are having a hard time finding work because of federal work rules.
Yeah, the city is now exploring the possibility of having migrants work for the city. 9 News reporter Brianna Fernandez joins us. And Brianna, this is a kind of loophole to the federal rules.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Denver leaders haven't yet convinced the federal government to loosen work regulations for migrants. So the mayor's spokesperson said this comes with a significant level of risk since the legal theory has never been tested. Last week, Mayor Mike Johnson met with the members of the Biden administration in Washington. He's asking for changes to the 1980s law limiting who can work in the U.S. So it states migrants cannot apply for the federal work permits for 150 days after they file for asylum. The law also bans private companies from hiring workers without a federal work permit, but it does not explicitly ban state and local governments from hiring. That's what Denver right now is exploring. So in the meantime, intersections across the city have filled up with migrants with nowhere else to work. Brian, who recently arrived to Denver from the southern border, stands at the corner of Federal and Alameda every day washing windows to make money for his family.
No tengo permiso. Eso es lo que no entiendo. ¿Para qué nos dejaron pasar si no tenemos permiso de trabajo? Entonces, eso es lo que buscamos.
He said, I ain't got permission, and this is what I don't understand. He said, I don't understand this. He said, we don't have work authorization. We look for work, and they ask us for our authorization.
Trabajo y nos piden el permiso. Esto es lo que tenemos que hacer.
This is what we do every day to survive. We surviving out in Denver. This is the Carter out here in these streets.
Diario, paso para poder sobrevivir.
Mayor Mike Johnson's office says hiring migrant workers for city jobs is a last option that they're exploring at the moment. It also comes with legal risks. They say if former President Donald Trump wins the election in November, everything could change when it comes to immigration. If the city hires migrants and allows them to work, the federal government, especially under Trump, could criminally charge everyone from the city who is employing these migrants.
So their last-ditch effort over in Denver, who, by the way, is still a sanctuary city. Why? We can only guess. And if I had to guess and I had to put a ton of money on it, it would probably be because they're being forced to be by the Biden administration, because big bad administration over in Biden is holding everybody hostage, and they see what happened with Get Out of Line like they did over in New York. You know what happened to Eric Adams, right? And so that's my guess, right? I can't substantiate that. That's just my guess because nobody's really talking. Everybody is under duress. Nobody is happy about it, but everybody is continuing to go along with the program as usual. But here's the key. Now they're saying, okay, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. We want to hire them for the city as a last-ditch effort. Look, if we can't do this, if we can't do that, then maybe we can hire them for the city. The problem is that if Donald Trump get elected, it's a possibility that all of y'all can get arrested for doing something illegal, because you know it's illegal to hire them in the United States of America, especially on taxpayer dollars. On taxpayer dollars. Now I wonder what the people feel about this. That's my question. What does the people in the city of Denver in the United States of America feel about this? Because even when they go over into Washington and they say, hey, Biden, hey, Congress, give us free. Give us free. Give us free. Y'all know that movie, right? Give us free. And then you add money on top of that. Well, whose money do you think that come out of? So even if you don't live in Denver or Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta or Boston, no matter where you live, you're going to be affected by the migrant crisis. Remember that. So when you vote this November, or even when you vote locally, I want you to remember exactly who's going to be affected the most. All of us. We are all under duress here in the United States of America as they continue to leave our borders open for illegal immigration. All right.